The feeling of love sometimes creeps up on us in the most unpleasant circumstances. When a woman stranded in a foreign country meets someone new, she falls in love with him. Their affair, however, puts her in more danger, and the only way to survive is to betray him. Will she save herself, or will she stand with the man she's come to love? In the opening scene of Stars at Noon, Trish, a young American journalist, walks around the quiet streets. She is a travel writer, and she covers the brutal extrajudicial slaughters going on in the country. However, this has alienated both her superiors and the ruling party. She goes to a restaurant and tries to order, but they don't have what she wants, so she ends up getting Sprite. She goes to the bathroom and locks the door, but is disturbed by a man who keeps knocking on the door. She doesn't respond as tears flow down her cheeks. She takes a deep breath, wipes her tears, and opens the door, faking a smile. The man is Veraguas, a Nicaraguan police officer, and her client. In the next scene, Trish and Veraguas are making out, but she's not feeling any pleasure. Instead, she comments on a picture on the wall. Afterward, Veraguas complains about how skinny she is, adding that he won't want her if she becomes skinnier. Veraguas starts getting dressed to leave, and Trish asks for talcum powder. He claims he doesn't have any. Veraguas then asks Trish for her press card and letter of authority. His request comes as a shock to her. He ignores her protestations and takes the letter of authority from her bag, but can't find the press card because she reveals it's at her motel. Trish finds out that he invalidated her press card and gets annoyed. Veraguas informs her that the army will arrest her soon, and he doesn't want them to see his name on the letter of authority, causing Trish to curse at him. Trish had gone off the grid for months and Veraguas wasn't able to contact her, so he questions her, but she brushes it off and asks for some shampoo, which he's more than happy to get for her. In the next scene, Trish goes to the Intercontinental Hotel. It's heavily guarded by soldiers, and people in white lab coats walk around. She goes to the bar and spots an Englishman named Daniel. She joins him and they start talking. She finds out that he's from London and invites him to get wasted with her, but he asks what brought her to Nicaragua. Trish tries not to answer the question, but gives in when he starts to leave. She was a special correspondent in the north and left because of a Girl Scout camp for refugees, while Daniel was with an oil company, Watts. The company wants to invest in Nicaragua, which he thinks is charity, given the state of the country. She tells him to join her for supper, but he says it's too late. Trish then tells him that he can sleep with her for a price. Daniel and Trish have sex in his room. Afterward, Daniel sees two soldiers hop down from a truck and seem to be panicking. Trish calms him down and asks to be paid in dollars, which is not surprising to Daniel, since everyone he's met wants dollars. He informs her of the news that the Cordobas is going to be rolled up. This is bad news for Trish, who exists on the black market of Cordobas. She puts on her clothes and tells him that he doesn't have to think about how he's going to ditch her, since she only came for the air conditioning. But he's thinking about something else. He confesses that it's not his first time committing adultery, and that he's probably putting his life in danger. Trish wakes up on Daniel's bed, and he asks if she wants to meet again. This sounds pleasing to her, as long as he has the money to pay her. She even mentions that she looks down on impoverished lackeys of billionaires as she goes into the bathroom. She steals a bottle of shampoo and uses his deodorant. Trish checks his bathroom bag and sees a gun. She puts it back and leaves after putting on her panties, walking away barefoot. On getting to her motel, she jumps on the bed. She counts the money Daniel gave her and puts it in a purse before getting dressed to go out. While leaving her room, she is greeted by the owner of the motel, who's surprised to see her awake early in the morning. In the next scene, Trish goes to a call center and tells the attendant that she wants to make an internet call, but is told that it's not available till 2 p.m. She bribes the man with the money she earned from her rendezvous with Daniel. Trish calls a man who employed her before, a high-class travel magazine. She proposes the idea of writing a piece on the nature reserve in Costa Rica if he can get her there. He queries if she's asking for more cash after they sent some before, and she promises not to contact them again. Trish intends to get everything together if he can help her get to Costa Rica, but he curses her instead. She reminds him that he employed her, but he denies ever employing her, because she only did a piece for them as a temporary worker. He believes they don't need her stories, since they can watch what's going on in the country on CNN, adding that she should admit that she's not a journalist. He tells her to lose his number and ends the call. As she's leaving, Trish is asked to use the other door. She gets angry and yells that America is going to tank their country, as she leaves through the same door she was asked not to use. Trish goes to a restaurant opposite the Intercontinental Hotel and orders some rum. She watches the soldiers and orders more rum when she sees Daniel coming out of the hotel. She doesn't look away from Daniel and sees him leave with a dark-haired man. Louis, the waiter, serves her more rum, and she downs it before following Daniel and the other man into the hotel restaurant. Daniel notices her, and she turns to leave, but changes her mind. Trish goes to the buffet table, but is told that it's for hotel guests only. She goes to the bathroom and steals toilet paper before leaving. She sees the dark-haired man on the phone with someone, and goes back to the restaurant to serve herself. Daniel approaches her and reveals he ignored her to save her reputation. Trish is curious about his friend, and he reveals that he wants to grow rice with rainwater, but Trish tells him that the man is a Costa Rican cop and is waiting for him outside. However, Daniel doesn't believe her and thinks she's just a whore trying to feel superior to those who pay her. Trish laughs in response to his statement. Daniel doesn't understand why she doesn't look anyone in the face when they're talking to her, but she tells him that there's nothing to see. Trish advises him not to talk to the man again, and to shoot the man if he has a gun, adding that he'll be followed if he leaves the hotel. She starts leaving, and Daniel asks her to go with him to his room, since she's drunk, but she asks if he has the money to pay her. He confirms that he has the money, and she decides to use it to get some shampoo, to prove that they will be followed by the man if they leave the hotel. Daniel boards an old Toyota with her. Truly, the cop quickly gets into his car as the Toyota pulls away. They watch as the cop follows them, and she asks the driver to go faster. Soon, they're blinded by the rain and can't see the car behind them. They get to the Mercado Oriental, a market, and Trish tells the driver to wait for them on the other side of the market before hopping out of the vehicle. They roam about the market, trying to lose their stalkers. She sees some shampoo and wants to buy it, but surprisingly, Daniel asks her if she doesn't like the one she stole from him. She changes her mind and decides to buy rum instead. A boy gives Daniel a paper about the election, and she tells him to throw it away, since there'll be no election even if it's in a week. They get some rum and shampoo at a hairdressing shop, and Trish decides to get her hair done by a professional. Trish still believes that there'll be no election, and they'll blame it on the Americans, but Daniel thinks otherwise. They get into their cab, and after a while, Daniel stops to get a carton of beer. Trish thinks that the cop could have shot him. They drive to her hotel, and she pays the driver again. She takes him to her room, which is nothing compared to his. He sees a back door, and she tells him that the room is hired by the hour, so no one sees who's in there. Daniel lies down on the bed, and later they have sex when it starts raining. The next morning, Trish wakes Daniel up before leaving to get some coffee. She uses the owner's phone to call the vice minister to ask if they can meet, and he tells her to meet him at his club by noon. In the next scene, Trish meets with the vice minister, informing him that she'll be leaving in a few days, and needs the help of his friend, who can help her convert her Cordobas to other currencies. She needs dollars to get a plane ticket. When she asks if he can help her get her passport, he tells her to wait until the election is over. Trish is frustrated because he's been telling her to wait for a long time, and blames herself for writing an article about the kidnappings. The minister claims that he's fond of her, and asks if she's still staying in the motel he sorted out for her. Despite her pleas, he can't help her further. In the next scene, Daniel is woken up by his vibrating phone. He cleans up and dresses up. Just then, he hears a knock on the door. The knock continues, and it's Veraguas. Daniel leaves through the back door and takes a cab to his hotel. He checks his phone and sees messages from a private number. He asks the driver if he can wait for him to take a quick shower before taking him to the ministry. They get to the hotel and see a bunch of cops waiting. The driver reveals that the cops are Costa Rican scumbags and are looking to take anyone staying at the hotel, since the hotel serves as security to foreigners. Daniel quickly takes his phone out and removes his SIM. The driver asks for the phone when he finds out that Daniel wants to throw it away. Daniel thinks it's dangerous, but the driver says that he can make it untraceable. Meanwhile, Trish goes to the minister's friend's place to get her money changed. She meets a guy who asks her to go with him to meet his cousin, who can help her, but she wants to meet their boss. The boss comes out and agrees to help her convert her Cordobas to dollars. She brings out the money, and he's shocked that she has a lot of it. But he asks her to give him her passport, to photocopy as insurance for converting plenty of black market money, but Trish doesn't have her passport, and curses him out before leaving. In the next scene, Trish goes to the ministry, and the minister meets her outside, telling her not to speak Spanish. He reveals that some people from the Department of Defense came to see him, asking about her. Trish claims he is her only friend, but he reveals that he found out that she has another friend. After leaving him, she goes to a payphone and calls the Intercontinental Hotel. She asks to speak with Daniel, but they inform her that he has checked out. Trish goes back to her motel and discovers that no one called her. She enters her room and jumps in the bed, sobbing. However, when she turns around, she is surprised to see Daniel. He reveals that he's been hiding in her place throughout the day. He plans to go back to his hotel, but she informs him that he's been checked out. She wonders if he knows that the Department of Defense is after him, but he claims he isn't aware. He wants her to help him get his luggage from the hotel, but she can't, because she'll regret it. However, Trish tells him that if he has a MasterCard or an Amex and buys her a plane ticket, she'll see what she can do for him. He laughs because he has an Amex, but it's been blocked. However, he reveals that he has one in his coat in his hotel room. He asks her what she did when she was stateside, but she gives him a vague answer. Later on, Daniel dresses up to leave and Trish jerks awake. She doesn't want him to go, since it's dangerous, but he plans to check if he was truly checked out. He leaves, and she quickly gets dressed to follow him. He needs a drink, so they go to a bar. They dance to the slow song, as they shut their eyes and embrace tightly. Daniel suddenly stops and apologizes to her before going to sit down. She joins him, wondering if he dances like that with his wife, and he confirms that he does. Trish stares at him silently. Afterward, they go out and see cops gathered around the area. They walk forward, and Daniel sees the driver to whom he gave his phone. The driver's lifeless body is in his car, with the phone placed in his mouth. Daniel is horrified by the scene. They head back to Trish's motel, and she tells him that she recognizes the cab driver. The next morning, Trish sees Daniel arguing with the owner, who's refusing to let him use the phone since he's not a client. He complains that he doesn't control when the British Airways opens and insists that he'll pay, but she refuses. The owner reprimands Trish for bringing a man in and says he has to pay for the room. He assures her that he can pay for the room and the phone. Trish asks if he's making a quick exit and he sighs. He asks her to call the hotel for his ticket information, and she tells the motel owner that he'll pay her in dollars for the call. The owner sighs, frustrated, and brings out the phone, warning that it'll be the last time. Trish calls the hotel, and the receptionist confirms that he's been checked out by a Watts oil agent. Daniel takes the phone, but can't understand what she's saying and gives it back to Trish. She tells the receptionist that he had no plan of checking out, but the woman tells them to contact his colleagues before ending the call. Daniel cannot explain about the ticket. Just then, Trish sees a Jeep pull up to the motel. It's the Costa Rican cop. She doesn't tell Daniel and goes outside to meet the man. He asks to talk with her and asks for her name, but she refuses to tell him. When she starts going back inside, he pulls her back. He asks for her passport, but she tells him that she's under the protection of the Nicaraguan government. Trish glances at a cab driver washing his car. She insists that she can't talk when he asks where the government is. He knows Daniel is inside the motel and asks if she slept with him, grabbing her by the waist. She struggles to free herself from his grip, and she spits in his face. He rubs the spit on her face and reveals that he listens outside her window, and she has a lot of explaining to do for sleeping with Daniel. Trish runs inside the motel and tells the owner, who had been watching everything, to call the police. She runs to her room and sees the back door open. Daniel's gone. She starts sobbing and goes outside the backdrop. She sees Daniel smoking and hugs him tight. She takes him inside and reveals what the man told her. Daniel is unable to think and slides down the wall. She takes the box of cigarettes and sees his phone card in it. He takes it and burns it with his cigarette. Confused, she asks Daniel who the cop is and what is happening, but he doesn't know anything. To make matters worse, he doesn't have any contacts in the country. She reveals that she had a vice minister and a subtenant before they cut her off because she was with him. Right now, she believes that she will be executed for her anti-government activities, since the minister can no longer protect her. Daniel intends to be out by night, but she doesn't want him to leave her now, and starts sobbing. At this point, he confesses that he loves her. Later on, Trish walks up to the driver she saw earlier. She needs a car, and he tells her that it'll be ready by the next day. She gives him a down payment in Cordobas, and tells him that her husband will pay the rest before going back to the motel. On getting to the motel, the owner gives her shocking news. She and her friend have to leave. She believes that Daniel is dangerous, and that the minister is no longer helping Trish. Their other options are the small motels around. Meanwhile, the cops are still there, watching her every step of the way. Trish gets to her room and reveals to Daniel that she told them her husband will pay. She's tired, and also on her monthly flow. Daniel massages her stomach gently to make her feel better. Later in the evening, Trish uses a cloth to massage Daniel as he lays on the bed. They fall asleep, unaware of the burning car just outside. A few moments later, the owner of the motel bangs on their door and sends them out, scared that her motel will be the next to be lit up in flames. Outside, they see the cab driver in tears as he watches the car he was working on in flames. They walk past him, looking back once. Daniel checks for open cars and sees one. He pulls out some wires and starts the engine. They continue driving until dark. The next morning, Trish wakes up and takes some money from a bag. She walks outside the motel and goes to an almost empty restaurant to get coffee. The only customer there turns out to be an American, who is pleased that the food is delicious. She tells him the food is from Costa Rica, and he confesses that it's his first time being there, and that he works for a consulting firm. He decides to treat her, since they're the only customers. She points out that there are no customers because nobody in the town has money, making it obvious that she finds him suspicious. He complains about the sun, and says they should move to another table with more shades. Meanwhile, Daniel wakes up and doesn't find Trish. He immediately looks for the bag, and is relieved to find it there. Back at the restaurant, Trish places her order, and the man complains about how everyone is rude in the country, and asks where she's from, to which she replies that she's from DC. She asks him what consulting firm he's working for. He refuses to go into detail, but tells her that they're from Connecticut, and that the job is weird, in the sense that they do whatever he asks for. He tempts her by saying he could hire her and she'll get $20,000. Trish wonders who would want to do business in the country, and he tells her that it's Central America as a whole. Plus, some wheat and rice industries have eyes on the country's lands. He reveals that he's been writing a report, and Daniel's name came up several times when he touched on the oil. He informs her that Daniel is one of the characters meddling with the election and the balance of power in the country. Meanwhile, Daniel is at the restaurant and has spotted them. She asks what his business with her friend is, and he reminds her that he's writing a report on the region, adding that it's about balance. While they speak, he points out that Daniel is coming towards them. So she shouts her question so that Daniel can hear her. Daniel sits with them, and the man reveals that Central America is trying to achieve balance and is ready to get the American military involved. He doesn't see why not, and Daniel agrees. Trish believes they're close to Costa Rica since there's Costa Rican food there. The man asks if that's where they're headed and tells them that he's been in San Jose for a month. When Trish questions him, he brings up the vice minister, and she reveals that the minister made her turn all her dollars to Cordobas. Trish assures Daniel that the man already knows everything about them. The consultant then offers to convert the money for her, unsurprisingly to Trish. Daniel stands up so they can take a walk and see if they can find a newspaper, as he wants to hear news of the election. Before they leave, the consultant tells Daniel that the women are all whores and will do anything for money, but Daniel ignores him and leaves to get a paper. Trish runs after him, but is stopped by the man. He knows that she has a passport issue and wants to offer her a deal, but she refuses to listen to him and runs after Daniel. At the motel, Trish is drunk, and Daniel tries to calm her down, because she'll get them caught if she doesn't stay on the same page with him. Later in the evening, Daniel steals a van and drives off. The van ends up getting stuck in a swampy field. He tries to get out of there, but nothing works. The next day, Daniel confronts Trish for not having a passport and wonders if she went through everything to turn him in. He points out that he's probably wanted in Costa Rica, but she feels they have a better chance of escape, since they'll be close to Panama once they get there. They still make love in the car before continuing their journey. They drive past the bridge leading to Costa Rica and are stopped by an officer, who demands their card or PCR. Daniel shows her his card, and Trish shows her a paper, but is told that it's expired. She's instructed to go to the tent set up by the roadside. She stands in line, and Daniel comes out of the van. When it's Trish's turn, the border agent from San Jose comes in to talk with her. He's blunt this time, and reveals that Daniel works for a rival, so they need Trish's help, but she refuses again. It is now clear that the agent and the Costa Rican are working together secretly with the authoritarian government, while Daniel is in some way trying to destabilize it. Her test comes out negative, and she leaves. She sees Daniel puncturing one of the van's tires. He shows the flat tire to a police officer, and they're allowed to turn back. They meet some smugglers at the tire repair who have a makeshift boat. They pay with the car, some money, and Daniel's wristwatch. Daniel is given a cloth to cover his white suit, and he questions Trish to be sure if she wants to go with him. She ignores his question and walks towards the boat, giving him his answer, that she is willing. On getting to a certain place, their boat is shot at by some gunmen. Trish and Daniel escape, but the are shot. Daniel is shot in his upper arm and navigates through the forest with Trish. They find an empty church and rest there. However, they're not the only ones there. The next day, the man who was with them leaves. A few moments later, the couple is surrounded by the agent and the Costa Rican, along with armed troops, who are pointing their guns at them. They take them out of the building. Trish asks if they can book a room for them, and they inform her that she's to be booked in a hotel, while Daniel will be arrested. She tries to stop them, but Daniel leaves willingly. She spends the night in the barrack, drinking in the rain. The next day, the Costa Rican cop and the CIA meet her at a restaurant. They were working together as a team. They give her an envelope with money, and the cop doesn't hide the fact that he doesn't like her. They leave as soon as she signs the paper she is given. She goes outside to check the envelope and sees a wad of dollars. In the next scene, Trish meets Daniel and is transported. She informs him that she's going home. She stares after him as tears roll down her eyes. In the last scene, Trish meets Veraguas on her way back. She asks what he's doing there, and he hands over her passport. He confesses that he's sad and will miss her. Veraguas puts on his cap, gets in his car, and drives off, leaving Trish standing in the middle of the street.